Welcome back to the Water Cooler, everybody. Talking a lot about immigration on this show, and for good reason. Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats doing their immigration bonanza bill marathon this week. Don't even get me started. I say don't even get me started. Should have heard me at the top of the show. Rewind that. Let's play that. No, let's not play that. Let's bring in Rick Green, shall we? A founder of PatriotAcademy.com. Rick, great to see you yet again. I don't mean yet again. I mean, you're here on the show. We love Rick Green. You're like cowbell to us.
Well, I look forward to Wednesdays with you every week, man. Good to be with you.
All right. Well, that's great. Hey, so immigration, the Constitution. Your voice is an important one here in terms of what the Constitution, I'm going to use the word says on immigration, but kind of give me the broader term here as to what the Constitution really speaks to when it comes to the immigration issue from a federal standpoint, and take it from there.
Yeah, man, there's basically two places you can look to for immigration in the Constitution. The word is naturalization in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 4. And let's talk about that one first, then maybe we can go to the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was dealing really specifically with former slaves who were being denied citizenship in the southern states. But what's really at stake right here is who gets to set the immigration policy. And that is given to the federal government in Article 1, Section 8. But the reason for that, if you go back to the founding era and you look at what these guys were saying to each other and what the issue was, Roger Sherman made it very clear in the Naturalization Act debate of 1790 in Congress, where he was talking about the reason we gave this power to the federal government was to prevent any one state from having really loose policies and the way they talked about it, forcing people on the other states that would be what they called obnoxious aliens, people that would be a drain on society, people that were there that they didn't want to be there, criminals, those types of things. And so he said to prevent one state from having really loose standards that then affected all the other states, we're going to allow the federal government to set this policy. So the idea was that the federal limitations or policies would be stronger, would be stricter than the states would do. We're getting the opposite today, of course. Now we have a federal government who's saying there are no rules. We'll let everybody in. That, of course, violates the spirit of what was meant by this clause in the Constitution. And it's one of the reasons the states are having to do the job themselves. I mean, Texas is working on it right now. Governor Abbott has sent troops down to the border. My friend Representative Brian Slayton has filed a bill to finish the wall in Texas. So states are going to have to step up here when you have a federal government that is failing in their duty to protect our borders.
Well, that's really interesting information here, Rick, and something that Republicans, I mean, we need to send this clip out to Republicans to say, hey, I mean, listen to what Rick Green is saying here, because in essence, you're making the constitutional argument for stricter border enforcement based on what the founders at the time were saying and what the gist was, basically. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think we've bought into this idea that the states have no role in this. It's entirely the feds. That's really a judicially created concept. The court gave the federal government what they called the plenary power over immigration, meaning that they had complete control of immigration. We didn't give that totally over to the federal government. Even when they put naturalization in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, the states still had some say. In fact, they would sometimes refuse certain people coming across their state borders that they knew to be criminals or whatever the other case may be. And sometimes it was used in an evil way to prevent slaves and people of color from coming over. But that doesn't mean you can't use it in the right way, which is to prevent people that are harmful to your society. And so I think states have got to step up on this. I applaud Daniel Horowitz over at The Blaze. He has a great article on this a few weeks back that brings back the founders' quotes and gives that history on it. Guys like former Congressman John Hostetler, he's now at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, talking a lot about the state's roles in immigration. And I think it's going to be necessary. We're going to have to step up. We got a federal government now that their stated purpose is essentially to let everybody into the country. Look at this crisis on the border. They are hurting not only America, they're hurting these people that they have sent the signal to come to America. Everything's going to be fine. And now it's encouraged these cartels. The cartels are making a killing on this. The sex slave and trade is booming because of this. Biden's policies are hurting not just America, they're hurting the people that are trying to get here.
So, Rick, let me understand something from a states' rights issue as it relates to building the border wall. So if the Biden administration halts funding on the border wall from a federal perspective, but if Texas down there is trying to finish the border wall, like, how does that work from a constitution and legal standpoint?
It will be a constitutional fight, no doubt about it. I mean, if you go strictly by stare decisis, if you go only by Supreme Court decisions, you can make the argument, hey, this is none of the state's business. This is only the federal government's business. From a historical perspective and from an original intent of the Constitution, I think you have a great argument that the states have the right to protect their own borders. And that might even mean in the future having to have some sort of protection from other states. Now, we saw some of this with COVID. Look, if a state has the ability to require quarantine or to not allow someone in because they might have a virus, why in the world wouldn't a state have the right and the power to prevent someone in that they believe to be a criminal element or to be believed to be a problem? So I think we've got some really interesting constitutional debates coming up. Of course, most people would want that to be decided by the Supreme Court. I'm not like that. I don't think, 5 out of 9 unelected, unaccountable lawyers in Washington, D.C. should have the final say on our law. The founders didn't think that either. So I actually believe it should be decided at a convention of states. Let all 50 states send representatives to a meeting and let them offer an amendment to the Constitution to take back some of this power and say, we in the states, if you feds are not going to do your job protecting our borders, we in the states have the power to do that.
Yeah, that seems to be the way to do it, for sure. So on from, not from a constitutional perspective, but just from a legal perspective, it seems like obviously the laws in America change as it relates to immigration and citizenship. It just seemed like, we've gone down a much more liberal path. I mean, back in the day where immigrants were coming in, Ellis Island and all of that, and now today it's totally different in terms of where America is, Rick.
Yeah, and think about the principles that should guide us on that. I mean, obviously we want legal immigration. We want people to come to America and enjoy freedom. But the basic principle of just leaving your border open, letting anybody come in, is incredibly dangerous. Think about it on a personal level. I mean, I obviously want to help people in my community or my state, but I'm not just going to open my front door and say anybody can come stay in my house. That's not exactly protecting my daughter or my wife or my family. So there's got to be some rules. There's got to be some limitations. We've normally thought pretty common sense on that throughout our history. But what's the problem right now is you have people in Washington that want to have a one-party state, and they see unlimited immigration as helping the Democrat Party, helping them to somehow, win elections, whatever their purpose and role is. It's bad policy. It's bad philosophy. It's bad for the Constitution and bad for the country.
Rick Green, always great to see you. By the way, you said the words common sense, but common sense and D.C. don't go in the same sentence up here.
Not lately, for sure.
All right, Rick Green with the winner of the best Skype shot, by the way, on the water cooler history. So thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. All right, when we come back, the last sip. I've got a few things to say about AOC, fossil fuels. Should I say these words? Farting cows.